Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Surviving Retirement Podcast. I'm Danny, and I'm here with Peter, as always.
Hi, Danny. Good to be back.
Today, we're diving into the tax-free savings account, or TFSA for short. Now, chances are you've heard of it. Most Canadians have, but what we've noticed is that a lot of people don't actually understand how powerful it can be, especially in retirement. People tend to think of TFSAs as just a savings account, a place to park some cash, maybe earn a little interest, and that's it. But the truth is, if you use it the right way, a TFSA can be one of the most flexible, tax-efficient tools in your entire retirement plan.
Exactly. A TFSA lets you grow your investments tax-free. And when you take the money out, you don't pay any tax. And it doesn't affect your other government benefits like OAS or GIS. And unlike RRSPs, there's no age limit on contributions and no forced withdrawals later in life.
So today's episode is really about clearing up the confusion and showing people how to use this account properly. Not just as a savings account, but as part of a bigger retirement income strategy.
Right. We'll walk through how the TFSA works, what the contribution rules are, including some common mistakes, and then we'll compare it to the RRSP so people understand when and how to use each one. And finally, we'll go through some strategies that can help retirees really make the most of their TFSA in the years ahead.
All right, Peter, let's start with the basics. For someone who's heard of a TFSA but never really dug deep, what is it exactly?
A tax-free savings account, or TFSA, is a registered account that's been around since 2009. You contribute after-tax dollars, and from there, any growth, whether it's interest, dividends, or capital gains, is completely tax-free. And when you withdraw the money, there's no tax at that point either.
So, unlike an RRSP, there's no tax break when you put money in, but the real benefit is on the way out.
Exactly. With an RRSP, the tax advantage comes up front. You get a deduction when you contribute, but you pay tax later when you withdraw. With a TFSA, you don't get that deduction, but everything that happens inside the account stays tax-free, and it comes out tax-free too. That can be a huge advantage in retirement, especially when you're trying to manage taxable income.
Right, because RRSP or RIF withdrawals count as income and can affect things like old age security or the guaranteed income supplement.
That's correct. TFSA withdrawals don't show up on your tax return at all, so they won't bump you into a higher tax bracket or trigger an OAS clawback. That makes the TFSA one of the most flexible tools for retirees trying to keep income low and benefits intact.
Okay, and what about what you can actually hold inside a TFSA? Some people still think it's just a place to stash cash.
That's a common misconception, and the name doesn't help. Despite the word savings, a TFSA can hold a wide range of investments: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, even GICs. It's more accurate to think of it as a tax-free investment account. If you're only using it like a bank account, you're probably leaving a lot of value on the table.
So if someone has their TFSA sitting in cash, earning a couple of percent, what are they missing?
They're missing the real strength of the TFSA, which is long-term tax-free compounding. Let's say you invest that money in a balanced or equity portfolio over 15 or 20 years. That growth can be significant. And because it's inside a TFSA, none of it gets taxed. Over time, the difference between that and a taxable account can be huge.
And because there's no tax on withdrawals, you can tap into it when needed without having to worry about taxes.
Exactly. You don't have to explain why you're taking the money out. There's no age restriction, no mandatory withdrawals, and you're not penalized for accessing it. For retirees, that level of control and the ability to avoid unnecessary taxes can make a big difference in how you structure your income.
So even though it's simple on the surface, the TFSA can actually play a pretty sophisticated role in retirement planning.
It really can. Once you understand how it works, it becomes a versatile tool, not just for saving, but for managing income, tax exposure, and flexibility later in life.
All right, Peter, now that we've covered what a TFSA is and why it matters, let's talk about how much people can actually put into one. What are the contribution limits?
The government sets an annual contribution limit, and it increases over time to keep up with inflation. This year, the cap is $7,000, but that's just the yearly amount. If you haven't contributed in past years, your unused room carries forward.
So if someone's never touched their TFSA, they might be able to put in a lot more than just $7,000?
Exactly. If you've been eligible since 2009 and haven't contributed, your total room is now over $100,000. But here's an important detail. You only start accumulating TFSA room from the year you turn 18. So if someone turns 18 this year, they're starting from scratch.
Got it. So someone who turned 18 before 2009 could contribute a lump sum today, but someone who just turned 18 doesn't get retroactive room.
That's right. And once you're contributing, It's really important to keep track, especially if you're making withdrawals and thinking about putting that money back in.
Okay, walk us through how that part works.
You can take money out of your TFSA at any time, for any reason, and the amount you withdraw gets added back to your contribution room, but not immediately. It's added back on January 1st of the following year.
So if I withdraw money mid-year and then try to put it back a few months later, that could actually cause problems?
It could, yes, if you don't have enough unused contribution room left from previous years. Recontributing too early could push you over the limit.
And that triggers the penalty?
It does, 1% per month on the excess amount. That may not sound like much, but over time it can really add up if you're not watching closely.
Yeah, that sounds like an easy mistake to make if you're not clear on the rules.
It is, and the CRA doesn't always catch it right away, so it can happen that people rack up penalties without realizing it.
So how do you keep track? Is there a central place to check your contribution room?
The best place to check is your CRA My Account. It tracks your contributions, withdrawals, and remaining room. But keep in mind, even the CRA isn't always fully up to date. It usually shows the last date the contribution information was updated, so be sure to check that date before relying on the numbers. Your bank or financial institution might show some info too, but that data can also lag, which is why it's still best to start with the CRA.
So before making a big withdrawal or putting money back in, check your numbers first.
Exactly. A quick check can save you from unnecessary penalties.
Great advice. I'm sure that clears up a lot of confusion for people. All right, Peter, so far we've covered how powerful a TFSA can be, but there's another key piece in the retirement puzzle, the RRSP. So how do these two stack up? And when it comes to retirement, is one better than the other?
They're both useful, but for different reasons. The RRSP gives you a tax deduction when you contribute, which is especially valuable in your high-earning years. It lowers your taxable income right away.
Right, you get that upfront refund, which feels like a win.
Exactly, but that refund isn't free, it just defers the tax. When you withdraw from an RRSP in retirement, the full amount is taxed as income. The idea is you'll pay a lower rate later when your income is smaller.
Whereas the TFSA works in reverse. No deduction going in, but no tax at all coming out.
That's it. You fund the TFSA with after-tax dollars, but from that point on, the growth is tax-free, and withdrawals don't get taxed or reported. So, while you don't get that refund at the start, you avoid the tax entirely at the end, which can be incredibly valuable when you're managing income in retirement.
And that plays directly into how these accounts affect government benefits, right?
Yes. RRSP, or RIP withdrawals, raise your taxable income, and that can reduce benefits like old age security, especially if you cross into the clawback range. TFSA withdrawals, on the other hand, don't count as income. They're invisible to the tax system.
So a retiree drawing from their TFSA can supplement their income without triggering any benefit reductions.
Exactly. That kind of control, being able to choose when and how you generate taxable income, is a major strategic advantage.
And generally speaking, people retire in a lower tax bracket than when they were working. So contributing to an RRSP while earning a higher income makes sense. You get the tax break up front. But once income drops in retirement, does it make more sense to focus contributing to the TFSA?
That's usually the case. Many people start drawing down their RRSP in early retirement when they're in a lower bracket to take advantage of the lower tax rate. At the same time, they can continue contributing to a TFSA, letting that money grow tax-free in the background. Then later, when RIF withdrawals become mandatory, new savings or excess income can be shifted into the TFSA to stay sheltered.
So it's not about choosing one over the other, it's about using both at the right time.
That's right, they're complementary. The best strategies often involve balancing the two, using RRSPs when the tax deduction matters, and TFSAs when flexibility matters more.
And the TFSA just keeps going. No age limit, no required withdrawals.
Exactly. RRSPs eventually turn into the RIF and come with minimum withdrawal rules. But the TFSA gives you complete freedom, and that becomes more important as your needs evolve later in retirement.
All right, that really clears things up. Would you say it's more of an emergency fund, or is it better for planned expenses?
It can be both. The beauty of the TFSA is its flexibility. You're not locked into using it one specific way. Some people keep it as a cushion for unexpected costs, medical expenses, major home repairs, helping a family member. Others use it more deliberately to top up their income in a given year, like if they want to travel or make a big purchase. Let's say you need a little extra cash in December, maybe for holiday travel or a gift for your grandkids. Pulling that money from your TFSA won't bump up your taxable income or cause any benefit clawbacks.
That's a huge relief for people trying to stay under certain income thresholds. Now, what about investing inside the TFSA during retirement? Should people keep taking risk, or should they play it safe?
Great question. A lot of retirees assume that once they stop working, they need to move everything into very conservative investments, but that's not always the best approach. Remember, retirement isn't a 1 or 2 year period. It could last 20, even 30 years. So having at least a portion of your TFSA invested for long-term growth can make a big difference.
So even if someone is withdrawing from the TFSA here and there, it still makes sense to keep part of it growing?
Absolutely. In fact, many retirees use their TFSA to hold growth-oriented investments that they don't plan to touch right away. And here's another important point. You can keep contributing to a TFSA even after age 71. That's not the case with RRSPs, which must be converted to a RIF or annuity by the end of the year you turn 71. You can continue to invest, continue to contribute, and draw from it on your terms, whether that's for something urgent or something joyful, like a vacation, a wedding, or just making life a little more comfortable.
And I guess that also makes it a great tool for building in a buffer. Like if someone's trying to avoid selling other investments during a market dip, they could draw from the TFSA instead?
Yes, that's a really smart use. Having a TFSA as a liquid, tax-free buffer can help you avoid having to sell long-term investments at the wrong time. It adds flexibility to your retirement plan, which is often just as important as returns.
All right, Peter, we've talked about how the TFSA works and why it's useful in retirement. But let's dig into the strategy side now. How can retirees use their TFSAs more intentionally?
There are a few key ways, and it all starts with recognizing that a TFSA isn't just a place to park leftover money. It can be a core part of your retirement income plan. One smart approach is using the TFSA to supplement your income in low-income years, especially if you're trying to stay below thresholds that trigger things like OAS clawbacks.
So it's not just about having more money, it's about where it's coming from and how it affects your taxes and benefits.
Exactly. The source matters. If you take money from your RRSP or RIF, that adds to your taxable income. But if you draw from your TFSA instead, it gives you the income you need without raising your tax bill. That can make a big difference if you're trying to avoid crossing a line that reduces your government benefits.
And what about the growth inside the TFSA itself? Does it still matter if someone's already retired?
Absolutely. People often underestimate the power of compounding, even later in life. Just because you're in your 60s or 70s doesn't mean your money stops working for you. If your TFSA is invested in a diversified portfolio that matches your risk tolerance, it can keep growing tax-free, and that growth adds up over time.
That's a good reminder. Just because you're retired doesn't mean your planning stops.
And on that note, it's worth reviewing what you actually hold in your TFSA from time to time. Some people keep it all in cash out of habit, but that might not be the best use of the account. Others might have investments that no longer match their goals or their comfort with risk. So a regular check-in, maybe once a year, can help make sure the account is still doing what you need it to do.
And what would you say is one of the biggest mistakes people make with their TFSA in retirement?
It's actually something we touched on earlier, recontributing too soon after a withdrawal. People take money out of their TFSA, then a few months later put the same amount back in, not realizing that doing so before January 1st can trigger an overcontribution penalty. It's such an easy mistake, but the 1% monthly penalty can add up quickly.
So the safe move is to just wait until the next calendar year before recontributing?
To be extra safe, yes, but the best way is to keep track of your contribution room as much as possible.
And what about someone who hasn't really used their TFSA? Maybe they've had one sitting with just a few thousand in cash? Is it too late to start using it strategically?
Not at all. It's never too late. Even if you haven't contributed much before, you may have years of unused contribution room just waiting to be used. It's a great opportunity, especially if you've got non-registered investments. Moving those into your TFSA can shelter future growth from tax and give you more flexibility down the road.
That's encouraging. I think a lot of people assume the window has closed if they didn't start early, but it's good to know they can still take advantage of it.
Definitely. Whether you're just getting started or looking to fine-tune your plan, the TFSA can play a powerful role in retirement. It just needs a little attention and strategy.
All right, that brings us to the end of today's discussion on TFSAs. We've covered the rules, the strategies, and the common mistakes, and hopefully you're walking away with a clearer picture of how this account can support your retirement.
Absolutely. TFSAs offer real value in retirement, but only if you understand how to use them properly. Things like when to contribute, how to avoid overcontribution penalties, and how you invest the money inside. They all play a big role in how effective the account is over time.
And that's why personalized advice is so important, because the right way to use your TFSA really depends on your income, your goals, and how the rest of your retirement plan is structured.
Exactly. If you're not sure if your TFSA is working as hard as it could be, consider booking a free 30-minute consultation with a member of our team. You'll find the link in the description or just scan the QR code on your screen. And if you'd like to keep up with industry trends and more retirement tips, consider subscribing to our newsletter. You'll receive a complimentary estate record keeper to help you track your assets and make things easier for you and your family.
And if you found this helpful, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We've got plenty more retirement planning tips coming your way.
Remember to be kind to yourself and to others, and we'll see you in the next episode.